Today we are going to be covering 5 common training mistakes that are making you slower. These training mistakes are so common, I've even made them myself over the years, and they've only ever slowed me down from progressing. So if you see anything on this list that you feel like you're doing, then it's probably slowing down your performance gains on the bike. Number 1 on the list is riding too hard all the time. I cannot tell you how many times I see this whenever I'm looking at somebody else's training or just snooping on Strava. You see riders, both experienced and complete novices, and they go out, they want to do a zone 2 ride, zone 2, and they go out and they're smashing themselves. They want to hit the PBs. They want to ride hard up every climb, push, 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 push. I'm telling you right now, I've done it myself. You go out, you try and hit top of zone 2 and you're trying to do it for 4 hours. But what happens when you get a little bit dehydrated? What happens when that heart rate starts to drift out of zone 2? I had too many coffees this morning, and you just keep pushing. I'm telling you what, that is a recipe for disaster. If you're pushing hard all the time in your endurance rides, you're never giving your body the chance to recover that it needs. You're going to end up burnt out and not recovering from your key sessions. And it's your key sessions that are going to help you win the race. It's those VO2 max and sprint efforts that you need to be doing fresh to win the races you want to win. Or whatever event you're signing up to, you're going to need to be able to go hard when it matters in that event. So you need to be fresh for those key training sessions where you're pushing your fitness ceiling upwards. I truly believe, and I know this is going to get a bit of pushback in the comments, that the number one reason both myself and you watching this video are riding too hard in your zone 2 endurance rides is because you haven't had proper physiological testing done. If you go back and watch my recent video, I did a VO2 max test down at UWS that gave me my VT1 and VT2. So whether it's lactate testing or VO2 max testing, go and get yourself some proper testing done that gives you, most importantly, a zone 2. Now whether you want to call it a zone 2 or LT1 or VT1, we're all talking about the same thing here, which is the point where your body switches from predominantly using fat as a fuel source to producing lactate and then burning glycogen as a fuel source. So if you go back to my last video, and I'll put it in this video as well, here's a graph. It shows you where fat max is, and it shows you where your lactate threshold 1 is and your lactate threshold 2 is. We're wanting to always be below lactate threshold 1 when we're doing our endurance training. And if you don't know where your lactate threshold 1 is, you have no idea how hard to be going in your endurance rides. So you can't be complaining to me when you feel tired all the time. So go and get yourself some performance testing. It's relatively affordable and it will be the biggest game changer to your training because you'll finally be able to do endurance training properly. Right, number 2, this is something that plagued me severely in 2023. I knew the pros were doing 1,000 plus hours of riding per year, and I went out in 2023 and I tried to replicate it. I wanted to get that base training in. I'd finally discovered lactate testing and I knew where my LT1 was, and I just wanted to push my aerobic threshold as high as I possibly could. So I was going out day in, day out, cranking 6-hour rides, and I was getting great aerobic adaptations. And if I was training for an Ironman, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I wasn't. I was trying to win crits and road races. And what would happen every single road race I signed up to? In the first hour, somebody would put a maximal 1 minute or 30-second sprint in, and I would lose the wheel. By the time the 3rd or 4th hour of the road race came around, I felt fine. I had such an aerobic base that the end of the road race didn't faze me, but I couldn't hold the wheel in that first 30-minute effort of the race. Now, I've worked hard on this over the years. I'm still lacking a little bit, but my advice to you is, I don't care what weight you are, if you cannot crack 1,000 watts in a sprint, you simply have not got a big enough anaerobic engine to be able to hold the wheel in a race. But because some idiot in a road race is going to hear the gun go and do an all-out maximal effort like they're sprinting for the finish and it's the first 30 seconds. And if you can't hold the wheel, you're going to be on the back foot for the rest of the race. So it doesn't matter how big your aerobic base is, if you can't hit that top end, you're going to lose the wheel. And once you lose the wheel, you're not in the draft and you're pushing all those extra watts just from being in the wind. So my advice is implement some standing starts or some anaerobic glycolytic battery work like 1 minute max efforts. These are really going to help push your top end up, and it means you won't have to suffer the fate I suffered, which is having all the aerobic base in the world and nothing to do with it. No race wins to show in 2023 because I could not hold the wheel when the going went tough. Number 3, this is really important for everybody, but especially important for me given my health condition. I'll flash that up on screen. You can go back and watch my CVID diagnosis video. I had some comments from the VO2 max video asking why I'd been on antibiotics for over 6 months. That will explain all that. But it's riding through illness. Now, I cannot stress this enough. I've done it myself. I know loads of other people who've done it as well. You get over that 3-day fever and they think, well, I don't have a fever, I don't have a temperature anymore, I'm gonna get back out on the bike. The problem is your lungs. You're still coughing up phlegm and you're thinking it's okay to be doing Zone 2 training. Now, if you pair your Zone 2 training with the first point on this list of going too hard on your endurance rides, it is an absolute recipe for a 6-month almighty illness. You're going to be cursing yourself for going out and riding. A couple of days off the bike is not going to ruin your season. It's not going to ruin your year. So don't worry about it. If you need to take a couple of days off the bike to clear a chest infection or to get rid of a fever or get rid of a head cold, do it. You're going to set yourself back months if you don't and you push through it trying to do endurance rides to maintain some level of fitness you think you need. Trust me, have the time off, clear it. And if you need to take antibiotics for a bacterial infection, again, take it easy. The antibiotics are going to really hamper your performance. Speak to your doctor, take illness seriously, don't ignore it and push through it. Nobody wins by doing that, trust me. All that happens when I've done it in the past is I've just dragged out the illness and it's meant that I've felt fatigued for months rather than having 2 weeks off the bike. Just knock it on the head, get the illness out of the way, and then you can get back to training. And pair that with the first point as well. Get some performance testing once you're back from being ill because your zones might have moved and then you'll be able to control your endurance zone a bit better for the build back up again. As I always say, performance testing allows you to know where you are now and where you're going to end up, and then you can measure exactly the difference in between. Number 4, I've gone and got myself a prop. Now this is a core body sensor, and the reason why I've gone and got that as a prop is copying the pros. I have done this for years, whether it's too much volume, whether it's specific race protocols, you name it, I've probably done it. However, the number one mistake that I've made when copying the pros is the introduction to heat training. Now, I got on the bandwagon for heat training early 2024, and the problem was there wasn't too much information out there on what protocols you should be doing, how much, how long. And the example I like to use is, just because a pizza takes 10 minutes at 200 degrees doesn't mean you can put it in the oven at 2000 degrees for 1 minute. And that's exactly what I was doing with heat training. I only wanted to do 30 to an hour at heat training zones. But what would I do? I'd crank the body temperature up to 39 plus degrees and leave myself absolutely ruined for the next few days because I just overcooked the body. What you want to do when you're doing heat training is get to that 38.5 degrees, which feels very hot when you're doing it inside. But actually, if you get yourself a core body sensor, I guarantee you some of you are hitting that kind of heat temperature just in your threshold sessions. So it's not that hot. It's definitely not hot enough to ruin your next 3 or 4 days of training. You're going to have to hydrate properly, take salt and recover after it. But it's not going to leave you ruined for the next 3 or 4 days and you're not going to be able to do any efforts, which actually is going to set you backwards rather than help you move forwards with heat training. So before you go out and copy the pros, actually learn why it is they're doing what they're doing, how they're doing it, what kind of protocols they're using, and what kind of implications that might have. Because if you just sign up for an altitude camp next month and you go there with no iron testing, no hemoglobin testing, you're probably just going to find yourself way too fatigued and worse off than if you hadn't gone. And that is why you need to be very cautious when copying the pro cyclists. Now the next one, number 5, is a bit similar to riding through illness, but there's a bit more nuance to it. And it's riding through persistent problems. For me over the years, that's been things like saddle sores and knee injuries. So I've brought out a prop of the trusty orthotics that I've had made, because these really have been the answer to a lot of my persistent problems. I used to get one-sided saddle sores, one-sided knee pain, and I would push through it until my knee had swollen up like a tennis ball and I would just not be able to ride the bike anymore. And it set me back months. Now, if you are having knee problems and you aren't able to get yourself a pair of custom orthotics that really help solve the problem, then you're likely going to be needing to do a lot of one-sided exercises to help strengthen the glutes to control your knees and prevent that injury. If you don't stay on top of those one-sided movements, you really are going to keep suffering from the same problem. So if you've got the same problem, it's persistent year in, year out, you keep getting the same injuries, the same pains, whatever it is, and it's keeping you off the bike, then you're never going to be progressing as quickly as you could be, because that's all time off the bike that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Now, I like to do an audit at the end of the year and tot up how many weeks I've had setback from certain things. That's ultimately why I got my CVID diagnosis I clocked that I was getting way too ill, way too frequently, and I just wasn't progressing because of it. It made me go looking for the answer, and it took a long time to get that diagnosis. It took a long time to get the answers I wanted, but eventually I got the answer to why I was being set back so much. So if there's something you know that you think when I say this, what is it that is holding you back in your cycling performance? Why do you keep having a week off the bike here or there? And if you can't answer that question, you think it's just random 4 or 5 different things, then maybe you have 4 or 5 things underlying that are causing you problems. For me, I was getting ill too much, I was getting knee problems, and I was getting one-sided saddle sores. And at some point or another throughout the year, these would set me back and mean that I had a week or 10 days off the bike. You add that up over a year, and all of a sudden, you're never really making as much progress as you could be. So that's my advice to you. Do an audit on yourself, go back and look through the year and think, how many times did I have time off the bike, and was that necessary to have time off the bike, or could I have prevented it? And that is how you'll get faster around the bike a lot quicker, because your training can become more sustainable. Well, that was a list of my 5 things that have held me back over the years. Common training mistakes that I think almost all cyclists are making way too often. If you want more help and more advice with your cycling to help progress quicker and avoid some of these pitfalls on this list I've made, then click the link in the description where you can go down and check out my one-to-one coaching offer, where I will help you personally achieve your goals in cycling. I'm limiting it to only 10 spaces, which means you're going to get my full attention to help you achieve what you want to out of the sport. As always, thanks for watching. Click subscribe, click like, because there's going to be more of this content coming along very soon.